I'd like to welcome you today to the Agile Planning with HP Project Portfolio Management and HP Agile Manager webinar presented to you by HP. Next slide, please, Ty. My name is Russ King from Results Positive, and I am the Vice President of Products at Results Positive and also an HP Vivid Agile SIG leader. So I'm going to be your host for today's webinar. Next slide, please, Ty. I'm happy to present today's speakers. We'll have three folks speaking today on the webinar. Ty Davis. Ty is the HP Agile Manager, Product Marketing Manager from HP Software. Ty lives in California. He's as I said, currently the Product Marketing Manager for HP Agile Manager and a Certified Scrum Master, and has years of experience in technology trends working with various marketing and strategy roles across Agile and application lifecycle management. Our second speaker today will be Brian McQuillan, and Brian is currently the Senior Product Marketing Manager on the Application Development Management Solution side of HP Software. Brian brings 20 years of experience in IT development, testing, and management positions, currently lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And our third speaker today will be Alan Wendt, Senior Solution Architect from HP Software. Alan joined HP in 2008 in pre-sales and has spent years working on in pre-sales, focusing on the strategic planning solutions in the HP software portfolio. Prior to HP, Alan had 10 years experience in the manufacturing, oil and gas, chemical education industry, and resides in Texas. So with that, I have a couple of housekeeping slides here. This live session is being recorded. There will be a session Q&A, and please type your questions into the questions pane within the webinar here. And then finally, one other slide for housekeeping. If you can go to the next slide, please, Ty. You'll see here a picture of your webinar control panel. It usually appears in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. To submit a question, make sure the questions pane is expanded and type your question and click send. So let's get started with the webinar today. Welcome, everybody, and please, I'll pass it over to Brian McQuillan.
Thank you, Russ. So, as Russ says, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. I'd like to start off by asking you a question. What is the state of Agile in your PMO today? Is it controlled and managed such that you know what your Agile teams are working on for each of the sprints and releases, and they're giving you some method of reporting? Or is it in reality, like we see with a lot of customers, a black hole in your project governance, where you're not actually seeing what's going on, except a piece of work comes out every couple of weeks, and you go, yeah, great. And so when you think about it, why Agile in the first place? Well, today's reality of development demands it. We're wanting things that are quicker, we're wanting a faster turnaround on new features, and we have to be agile because we're being asked to do a lot more with a lot less in terms of resources. But when you go down that road of trying to run faster, it often leads to lack of visibility into the bigger picture because your teams are concentrating on the small items and the tree rather than the forest. You lose a little bit of control regarding your priority investments. And you kind of get fractured reporting when you're working in a hybrid environment. So you might have some projects that you're running Agile, but other ones that are still using traditional waterfall SDLC. And next slide, please, Ty. So the pressures of modern delivery. From the business, we need to innovate faster. And they're going, this isn't what we asked for 18 months down the line when we've sunk a couple $1 million into a new project. And the huge projects that we are doing in the old SDLC are risky and fail far too often. And the reality for today is that apps, modern apps, require a quicker response. Next. And so for the poor apps teams, it's a case of, well, I can't keep working like this. We spend all of our time in administration and docs. The requirements are constantly changing. Oh, yeah, and what about that quality thing that we were supposed to do? Next slide, please. So the problem is that Agile will promise you faster delivery and more quality, but how do you make sure that you can invest in your highest priority projects based on your constraints of resources and finance? How do you manage visibility between hybrid projects and Agile? And how do you handle enterprise governance? Because at the end of the day, you've got to report to somebody. So how do you get visibility into all types of projects? Next slide, please, Stan. So, first of our polling questions, please, Stephanie. Thank you.
Yep, so the first polling question is, have you heard of HP Agile Manager? Please select one of the two answers. Yes, currently an Agile Manager user. Yes, but not currently an Agile Manager user. Or no, you've not heard of the question or of Agile Manager. So we'll give you a few seconds to answer that, and then I'll reveal the results when we get the answers.
And the votes are coming in here. And
Okay, we'll give it about 10 or 15 more seconds.
Yes, looks great. Okay, here come the results.
Okay, thank you. So the results of this, have you heard of HP Agile Manager? 16% yes and currently use Agile Manager. 62% yes, but not currently an Agile Manager user, and 22% no. So Ty and Brian, those are the results of that first quick poll. So I guess Brian, Ty, any comments on the results of that poll?
Interestingly enough, I see from it that we have a good representation of people that are currently using Agile Manager, which is great for a product that's still fairly new within the HP family of products. I'm also encouraged that a large number of people have heard of it, and we would encourage you to try it. And there is a free demo capability that you can sign up for to get a 30-day free trial for 10 of your users. And for those that are interested, let us know and we can get you the details. And for those of you that have not heard of the product as yet, well, hopefully today is a good opportunity for you to learn and see if you want to learn some more. Thanks. Ty, any comments before I go on?
I think you nailed it, Brian.
Thank you, thank you. So when we start looking at Agile and scalability and governance, why look at HP for Enterprise Agile? Well, one, you want to be able to release new products and new software with confidence all the way through your portfolio, from the individual teams to the larger level initiatives at the program level, and indeed for the entire portfolio. Scale it, achieving both velocity and quality, and being able to sustain that complete application life cycle of agility. And you'll notice in the top right-hand corner we have a little logo from the Scaled Agile Framework organization. Now this is an organization completely independent of HP that goes around and certifies people, processes, and products that meet the Scaled Agile Framework, meaning that they can take everything that you do all the way from your sprint teams, or if you're doing Kanban, all the way up through to the enterprise level. Next slide, please, Dan. So how does that work in practice from an HP software perspective? Okay, so our SAFe certified portfolio of apps will help equip your teams for success and scale to the enterprise level, and actually act as a foundation for continuous delivery for those people that are looking at DevOps solutions to achieve faster. So at the bottom, we look at Agile Manager. So it's designed to manage Agile projects aligned with the business. It's used by the Agile teams, product development teams. You're releasing your DevOps teams to make sure that they've got the latest build, that the tests have been run, that the requirements have been met, and putting stuff out there into production. And it will support Scrum, Kanban, even Scrumban, and other derivatives. Next slide, Ty. At the program level, when you're looking at the overall larger project, HP's application lifecycle management helps manage your business requirements and indeed your other requirements, as well as the information on your tests and your defects. And in fact, Agile and ALM are designed to work together, especially when you're looking at some of these hybrid projects, for passing information in and from each other. So if I find a defect in a build, I can roll that immediately up to ALM to try and figure out which, or know most of the time automatically, which requirement and which piece of code that was built for, so I can have complete traceability through both products when anything goes wrong and find the root cause faster. It will also, And the third layer at the portfolio is HP Project and Portfolio Management, which we're going to see demoed today along with Agile Manager. And it helps manage the business-driven portfolio to help you ensure that you're using that limited set of resources of personnel and finance in the most effective manner to run your business. So it will help define and manage your portfolio as the epics. It will feed that information down into ALM as requirements that can be then further broken down into Agile as your user stories. And it will help provide that executive level of reporting and governance, because Agile and ALM both feed their reporting statistics back up into PPM to be tied to the portfolio. So you've got governance and visibility at the executive level. Next slide, please, Ty. So what does all that mean in practice? Well, it helps you empower an Agile PMO across your enterprise. Whether you're fully Agile, whether you're just starting out on the Agile journey, or whether you're running a mix of SDLC and Agile. So being able to manage that strategic portfolio across the entire business unit, not just one project, aligning it to what the business actually needs and wants, and being able to report in real time for the whole portfolio, no matter what types of projects you're running. Having those scarce resources in the right place for the right projects, and being able to manage across those projects, teams, and geographies, and balance the needs of organization, and give end-to-end agility and governance. Next slide, please, Ty. So we come on to our next polling question, please, Russ.
Yes, thank you, Brian. So our second polling question is, what software development methodologies are actively used by your companies? Please check all that apply. Waterfall, prototyping, spiral development, Agile, and other. So Brian, as we wait for the responses to those, I think that expanding a little bit on this capability of what are we, as you talk about the executive visibility and the integrations with ALM and Agile Manager into PPM, that's fundamentally going to be what we're going to demo on the next couple of parts of the webinar. Is that right?
We're concentrating on two parts today, Russ. Agile Manager itself, which Ty is going to take us on a walkthrough, and how the Agile interacts with PPM. But you're right, PPM, ALM, and Agile are the core of our enterprise Agile strategy, such that you're not having teams working in 2 or 3 different tools. The strategy is that the team members will work in the product that's most important to them, and have the information that's needed flow backwards and forwards. So a developer would never really need to be in PPM to record his time, because Agile will take care of that for him and feed it up automatically to him.
Okay,
as an example.
Great. All right, well, I appreciate that. So we do have the results of our poll, and I'll just read those quickly. So for what software development methodologies are actively used, 84% of the respondents are using Waterfall, 30% are using prototype methodologies, 15% spiral development, 78% Agile, and 17% other. It must be the topic of the webinar, because I've I think, participated in numerous webinars where we've asked a similar question, and never have I seen Agile and Waterfall almost at the same percentage. So I think that, that certainly reinforces what we all know, that Agile is gaining adoption in many, many organizations. But Brian and Ty and Alan, any comments on that? That's a surprising number to me. So.
No, I think you're right, Russ. If we had asked this question even, say, 12 months ago, I think we would probably have found Agile about 35 to 40%. So it's encouraging to see that there's a lot more of that type of development out there. So thank you, Ty. I'm going to go through the next couple of slides before we turn it over to Ty for a demo, but this is just a teaser screenshot for those of you who've never seen Agile Manager of what the product looks like. If you've done Agile in the traditional sense, a big whiteboard, lines down the middle, and moving your sticky notes from place to place, you'll see that when we come into the product, that it's pretty much an electronic version of that, but with more bells and whistles that you can do without actually using a whiteboard. So when we talk about Agile Manager, what are the key capabilities that we're looking at? Well, it gives you Agile project management, story management, defect management, importantly, integration into the IDEs that your developers use the most often. So if you've got somebody using, say, TFS, for example, we can push the user story information down into that and to most of the other popular IDEs that are out there, and have the developer work in their IDE, check their code into their code management system, say, hey, this is how long this piece of code took me to write, and that information then goes automatically back into Agile Manager and then through up into PPM. So again, the developer is working in the tools that are more comfortable and appropriate for them, and they don't even have to see any of the others if that's what you decide to do. It will also allow for workspace provisioning, so that in the one instance of Agile Manager, you could have a team that are working on Scrum products and another that are working on Kanban, and they can both be in the same instance of Agile without having to set up two separate products to do it, or two separate instances. And being able to have a look at your development analytics, so being able to integrate in with build systems like Jenkins, to be able to automate your builds and automate your tests and gather all of that information back up into Agile Manager, and to allow you to make decisions, and also into PPM for governance. Next slide, please, Ty. Some of the key characteristics for it is that you can have this software as a service, so it's instant on. The minute you sign up, an environment can be available for you. Or you can also have it as an on-premise product. We develop it agilely, hence its name. So we are regularly releasing new features and functionality into the product, typically on a monthly basis for our SaaS users, and a roll-up of that on a quarterly basis for our on-premise customers. It's built on Web 2.0, clean technology. It's a very intuitive UI as you from the ground up to integrate into HP's broader portfolio. Next slide, please, Ty. From a PPM perspective, what do we help provide to the Enterprise Agile solution? So Agile, I think we might have got this slide mixed up with another one, Ty. Yeah. So again, from PPM's characteristics perspective, again, SaaS or on-premise delivery, and it doesn't matter if you have a mix either. Either of your PPM, your ALM, or your Agile can be all on SaaS, some on SaaS, or all on-premise. It's your choice of what best suits for you. Again, with the latest releases of PPM, it's a Web 2.0 clean UI, very robust integration capabilities in the last few releases to go into ALM, which has been there for a number of years, but also to Agile and to reach out to some of the other solutions. Next slide, please, Ty. So some of the things that we're looking at from PPM and Agile integration, we can feed from PPM our prioritized investments, the available money and the resources for the Agile teams. So being able to manage the resources at the very high level in PPM to make sure we've got the right type of resources, the right number of resources, and the right amount of work for them to do, but let that be fed down into Agile for it to be managed at the team level. So getting velocity and quality for the enterprise and visibility into release and statuses across at the team level all the way up to the executive level. And with the PPM being able to help support at an enterprise level reporting on Agile, waterfall, and hybrid projects. Next slide, please, Ty. From Agile Manager to ALM, syncing bidirectionally the requirements, defects, test data, and metrics, especially if you are running some of those hybrid projects. You want to be able to look at that bigger picture within a project of which parts am I doing waterfall, which parts am I doing Agile, and being able to make sure that you're able to pass the information on your defects and metrics and requirements backwards and forth, especially where there might be conflicts. Next slide, please, Ty. And so from PPM to QC and ALM, again, being able to sync requirements and defects and metrics. And you might think here, well, why would I want to sync a defect from QC and ALM all the way back up to PPM, or indeed from Agile all the way up to PPM? Well, for the simple reason that you may find the defect is really severe enough that it's going to initiate a scope change within your project. And as we all know, when it comes to managing projects with large scope changes, that is immediately going to be a hit on the resources that I need and the amount of money that I have to spend. So that has to be factored back in at a portfolio level to make sure that we adequately address the defects. Next slide, please, Ty. And at this point, I'm going to turn over to Ty to do a demo of Agile Manager. I hope you enjoy what you see, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Brian. And thank you all for joining us. And what I'm going to do here is go ahead and give a high-level demo, as we're going to look at an Agile Manager and a PPM demo in this hour-long webinar that we have. So I'm going to run through here. If you want to get more details, follow up afterwards on a demo with Agile Manager. We can dive deeper into specific questions or features you'd like to see. Go ahead and follow up with me or send a contact information. We'll get someone on that. So with Agile Manager, we're going to go ahead and start from our release backlog. And with the release backlog, it's just your normal backlog of a user stories that you're going to go ahead and insert into, I apologize, actually into release management, into the product backlog. Product backlog here. There are three main sections of hierarchy for HP Agile Manager. We have the backlog items that are seen here. Backlog items are members of features, and features are members of themes, or epics as it's called in some cases. Over on the right-hand side, we can see the available releases. The available releases. In our demo today, we are going to use the concept of a media store, which is much like Amazon.com, where you can purchase movies, books, music online. From here, just to show you quickly, if you want to add a user story or requirement, you may notice that there's only two requirements, two asterisks, so the only two required. So if you have a small field, you may not need all that hierarchy and process, even story points if you just have a small little project you're working on. At the simplest level, you can create a user story and name it, assign it to release, and work on the requirement or user story. So the product scales down very well for small development efforts. For larger scale development efforts or enterprise development efforts, you could have a more complex hierarchy, kind of like what we have here for the HP Media Store. In this case, you can drill down into themes and features and say, we have several features. So if I wanted to go ahead and put in user story here, user story, I can go in there. You can add a description, add an attachment, application. Go and have it to one of the applications you have good support for whatever various ones you have, website core. Attach that to a feature. So within, in this case, the music store, go and put a music purchase. It's going to go to that feature. You can prioritize it by medium, high or low. Release will be HP Media Store team. You get assigned to that sprint team that you're looking to take on that, so we can get to that different point. And then story points. What story points here are basically the difficulty that you're going to see in this user story. There's very different ways that you can take on story points, whether it's you get maybe poker points or in this particular case, I like to take story points as days, so how many days I think the project might take. So we could just say 3 days here, save it, and from there, the item will be added in.
Hey Ty, this is Russ, and I'm just monitoring the questions that are coming in while you're doing the demo here. One of the questions is, where can we define an epic within Agile Manager? So I don't know if that's something you want to cover now during the demo. That's why I jumped in.
Okay, so in Agile Manager, our themes are what we call epics. So here you can define that epic. And so in this particular case, we have music store, movie store, bookstore, billing, and that's really where our themes are epic.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So once you have that, you have your user story here. What we can do is we have a nice little left to right interface to drag and drop into the HP Media Store and do this release. It's going to end up in there. From there, we can go to release management. And from release management, it's going to start to get on a more granular scale there, where we can, again, left to right drag and drop. These are stories that have been maybe selected by the product owner for that particular release. What we can do there is begin to assign to a team within that sprint. This is sprint 8, so this is actually a sprint that hasn't been started yet. See here on sprint 7, teams that have points assigned to them. This case, blue team has 42 of 50, so we can probably go ahead and add that in there. About 90% planned right now on their anticipated velocity. See, it's added 45 out of 50. Everything's automatically updated in these metrics. And then from there, you can go even more specific to that blue team. You can go up here to sprint backlog. It's over there. With the blue team here. Within that blue team, you have your individuals that are part of that team, and that's where you can, as a Scrum Master, as a team, decide who's going to take on a certain user story. From there, we can assign to individual person. You can have preset hours of what your anticipated velocity of that individual is. Here we have 60 hours. In this case right here, we're over capacity. And then what we can do from there is go into our task board. You'll have a nice visual of all the user stories, and then tasks with an Agile Manager defined by hours. So with each user story, that a task can be assigned to certain people and then certain hours within that user story. Click here, get a little bit. Related tasks that I was just talking about, how much hours are needed, how much hours are invested, and then down here below you have your acceptance test. So we can assign acceptance tests that need to run through, need to pass or fail, or maybe they're automatically billed, and then get sent back based off that user story. Okay. What we're going to do is go take a look at a couple more of the features of release management. We're going to look at the planning board here. And the planning board is another visual storyboard that provides a lot of visibility and insight into managing a project. You can see with various applications how many user stories have been delivered, how many are in progress, and how many are testing. You can look at an application basis, or I can change the look at a sprint by sprint basis. If I want to see where we are on every sprint. A lot of visibility in this interface that is considered your scrum to scrums. And then we're going to click over to storyboard. With storyboard, we could support a compound storyboard. We can set a user story level, what's in the backlog, what we have planning, and what we have in progress. So I get that out of the way. So planning, progress, drag and drop to done. And this is fully customizable, so if you want to add some work in progress limits or some additional lanes to give more granularity into managing your project, you can say along with coding, you can add this lane here, testing. So now I have another column that is available that moves from coding to testing before it is moved to done. Then we go into sprint closure. And we want to close out each sprint as it's an important part of managing an Agile Scrum project. Within sprint closure, we get a lot of information at the end of the sprint. We can see how many user stories and defects were assigned and completed. If there was any build breaks during the sprint, whether the user story was pre-planned or added during the sprint. Hopefully we don't have a lot added during the sprint because it's not good to be adding your sprint as you're going along. We have some comment sections where we can put what went well or things that we can improve on. And then what we have this is a to-do list that we've created there with a lot of non-development activities that need to happen for a sprint to close out cleanly. For example, the operations team needs to get some servers ready for this deployment, or again, the training department needs to do some training for some functional enhancements that have been made. We can create a whole list of action items that aren't development related to make sure that the sprint is closed out cleanly. If we didn't complete items, all the items, and in best case scenario, we do complete all user stories and defects within the sprint, but in this case, we didn't complete all of our user stories and defects. I can decide what I want to do with these unfinished items, if I want to roll them into the next sprint, or I can just dump them back into the backlog. This gives you the ability to close things out with unfinished items and decide how you want to handle them going forward. Apologize to kick back. From a release summary perspective, we have the ability to view a summary at a glance. You can look at all the sprints within the release, how many story points were delivered, how many defects, what the code coverage was, and how many test successes you had. So the Scrum Master, Product Owner reporting up to the VP, you can see how efficiently your sprints are going. Do we maintain a high level of delivered user stories, low level of defects? Again, these are metrics that are automatically generated. Nobody's having to do any data entry, and it is just automatically updated via people checking in, checking out code, and running nightly builds. Down here, we can see who's been committing the most code or the most, even the most defects. Maybe in this case, Paul is making the most commits but creating the most defects. So you want to for the quality of the commits there. Maybe Alice here is committing less but having higher quality code with less defects, and it just gives you the ability to have visibility into who's doing what. And here we're going to take you to defect management. So just like our user stories, we have a defect management backlog. Anything that's been logged in as a defect will show up here, and they can be assigned to the individual that the Scrum Master might think possible. Okay, going to our build summary here. Really with Agile Manager, what it does a lot is it allows the developer, let's say Alex, for instance, to work in his development environment. Maybe he doesn't like using tools. He doesn't like doing a lot of documentation. He just wants to write code. So the integration we have via application-level intelligence is a great mechanism that allows the personas to work from their favorite environment. What I'm showing is a bidirectional integration we have between Agile Manager, ALI development, and the development environment. What you can do is you can create, aside from this requirements and tasks, to push those down into the dev environment or the IDE, and the developer can participate in the project without necessarily having to log into the tool. You can create defects, for example, and they'll synchronize back up to AGM, so you really get that communication back and forth between the environment. As a byproduct, we can see some other information via ALI. We can tie into the build systems, for example, Jenkins, and we can get an at-a-glance visibility into what's happening into the nightly build. We can see whether they succeeded or failed, how many lines of code were changed, how many defects by severity were worked on. These metrics that no one has specifically entered anything special to do. Maybe Alex is just doing his normal work, checking out his code, writing his code, checking code back in, a nightly builds run, and then we get the visibility into all his data. So we can drill into all these nightly builds and get specific details on how many lines of code were delivered, how many lines of code were delivered, how many were modified, giving visibility insight up to the Scrum Master, Product Owner, Product Manager, maybe the VP of Application Development. So to kind of finish up the Agile Manager, so we can get over the PPM demo. What we have here is a dashboard. It's the entry point in Agile Manager. It has the ability to present a ton of metrics. It gives you your burn down velocity report, your burn down chart up, or your burnout chart. It comes with dozens of pre-built reports, dashboards, and you can also customize your own. These are just graphs that help you with estimating by using progress on your current deliverables and just forecasting future sprints. So again, this is just a high level of Agile Manager. What we can do is get someone to dig deeper into this. If you want to have a follow-up, we can talk to you about what your needs are, what Agile Manager can do for you, and how we can address those with this product. So at this time, what we're doing, I'm going to pass it along to Alan, and he's going to highlight the PPM Agile Manager integration.
Thanks a lot, Ty, and thanks for that presentation. Give me a second. I'll just turn on my local desktop so you guys can actually see what I'm looking at. So what you should have there is just a single slide. I will not kill you with slide materials today. I've been a victim myself of some of those that harassment. So what I have here is a single slide to kind of position the value that the project and portfolio management solution that we also have to bring to market complements what you've seen thus far in the presentation with Agile Manager. The idea is that I'm going to provide you a cohesive and out-of-the-box integrated framework to host multiple types of work processes depending on if you have waterfall, if you've got extreme programming or agile teams, multiple agile teams, and more the traditional waterfall teams. They can use multiple products and have a catching location for all of that data. Very quickly in this slide, the idea is to provide that comprehensive approach to those multiple entities and to provide you specifically an application that's going to give you information about the investments that you've made in those strategic or operational projects that you're currently invested in, and then also that the budget, the capacities around budget and resource demands are actually also in line and available a few clicks away from those same data locations within the tools. So I'm going to go ahead and switch off, and we're going to jump into the live product. And what you should see, first off, is actually a browser view. Logged in as a project manager, and in this particular use case, what you've got here is a project manager by the name of Joseph Banks. Joseph is logged into the PPM tool, and he's obviously interested in the work that he's assigned with, so he doesn't have to worry about the extra noise, digital noise, with all of the other projects that are going on across the enterprise. He's very much focused on looking at the portlet information that's assigned to his teams or that he's particularly individually engaged in. So if you look through with me for just a second here, I've actually got a few individual portlets of data information. Status of the projects that I'm currently engaged on, a high-level health indicator of those projects, and that's a weighted, mixed combination of statuses that drives that single health indicator for the effort. Health indicator also the project work plan, some other key information on the project. As I scroll down the screen, you see a Gantt chart view of the same project assignments. I've got a specialized portlet that I've set up to show me integration with the ALM product. So here what we're looking at also is a combination of information about programs. So our solution as PPM is all about consolidation of data. So let's take a look at one of those projects. I'm going to go ahead and dive into this enterprise application project, and you'll notice at the very top bar of information, I immediately am communicated the fact that this is indeed a hybrid project, so that ICO gives me information about the fact that this is a project that's made up of multiple sub-projects. Could be from multiple teams, could be from multiple products, but what I have here is an early indicator that I actually have a series of information that's cascaded down. The access is available for me to drill into that information, but then I have the ability to cascade up or roll up that information with regards to budget informations or staffing profile. And as a one-stop shop, this project summary screen actually gives me just a click option to actually drill into those other details. Budgetary, financial information, staffing information. Specifically for today's conversation, let's take a look at the work plan. What we've done with our tool, and we actually have a toolkit, a developer toolkit that is a connected add-on that you can download off of the HP website, the community website, HP Live Network. And what that allows you to do, if you'll notice here, just an icon also at the task level. At that task level information, I'm able to create associations with multiple project efforts. You'll see here also we provide this quick view multiple views are available, and I would standardly access this to schedule my projects. If they were waterfall, for example, I would go ahead and schedule the resources, information about the start, stop dates, durations, etc. Here, with this quick view, I also get information about the hybrid. So here I've actually got just a click away. If I click on those carrots, I actually see the tasks that are coming up for me in sort of a Gantt chart view as well, so I can scroll to the right, and it indicates for me also information about how those tasks are associated with each other. I'll double-click that media solution individual task, and I'm presented with a tab specifically around the integration called Hybrid Project. On the Hybrid Project tab, what I have here is this association with that sub-project and a navigation point. I'm going to go ahead and click on that Go to Sub-Project. You'll notice now that I switched over from that Enterprise project, and now I'm looking at the Media Solution project. Likewise, I have an ICO indicator right off the bat that this project is actually integrated with my Agile Manager solution. So immediately, that information, if I wanted to maintain and can continue to monitor these things independently, I can drill into the work plan of this project effort. And here's where you're getting a collection of information. I'm going to actually close this integrated task level. What you get when you connect those entities from Agile Manager is actually it imports the release hierarchy and this, from each of those stories as a task, and that task information, as you can see here, is coming right out of Agile Manager. So we actually get a really comprehensive view not only of the things that are going on. So I haven't done any entry necessarily in our PPM tool. I'm simply harvesting that information and it's replicating into this location. So as I scroll down, that's the first sprint. You'll notice that I have a holistic view of all of the activities across the next several months. At that top level, I can double click. And this is where I can drill into the details about the individual measurement points. So I actually have the ability under this Hybrid Project, again, tab, to actually click to show the following series of charts. So here I'm shown 2 status charts and 2 burn charts. One a burn down chart from the sprints and another release burn up chart. This is coming immediately out of Agile Manager. This is a hover-enabled screen. So I can hover over those different statuses, in this case, in the themes. It groups that information in the stacked bar chart for ease of consumption. And then I have the ability at any point in this view to highlight that information. On the graphics below, you can see I can see trends as it burns down through my plan. I can see that capacity and remaining effort information as well. Again, the idea here is to highlight visibility and operational control, so I can continue to maintain several dispersed teams across the enterprise, and I have a single location I can navigate to give me some information. The next thing I'd like to show you or highlight during this last few minutes of our time together today is some information actually about time tracking. The other very common use case that we've seen with our customers as I navigate into the next scenario is I want to have an easily navigatable place where my developers, folks that are using Agile Manager, can navigate and capture their actuals against those different sprint efforts into a timesheet without doing double entry. So what we've developed here is the ability, we can actually pull in that information from Agile Manager and save some keystrokes for those developer types. So you'll notice as I go on, I would go to my timesheets as this developer user type. I would actually add an external data entry to the timesheet line information. It's going to prompt me with what external system I'm accessing. In this case, it's Agile Manager. I select what server. If I've got multiple instances of that Agile Manager instance, I absolutely can select that. I enter in my privileged login information to that target system. I select, and here I have an option. If I was working on multiple efforts in Agile Manager, it would prompt me with those efforts. And I would have the ability to click on X if I didn't want to include those for import. To the right, I see what information I'm just about to import into an existing timesheet. I click Import, and I add a single entry line to the timesheet. You'll notice those 10 hours have been spread across the time period. So what it's done, instead of requiring my resource to go in and make entry, I've actually done the entry in a single source system of source. In this case, it's Agile Manager. It spread that information across the time period that I'm currently logged into, and allows my end user to not only continue to track time with a few clicks away from source, but I can also continue to become a stakeholder and a participant in the other objects that are going on in my environment. Again, so very quickly, I have a place that I can save keystrokes. I can save some product jumping to go in and out of multiple products. There's enough of that already in production. We don't want to add to that tax of jumping to multiple products. So you save some time and increased efficiencies. At this juncture, I've completed the two different demo scenarios that I wanted to show you and express in today's demonstration. I'm going to hand things back over to Russ for some Q&A time. Russ?
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Ty. So we've had lots of great questions come in during the webinar, and I'm glad we were able to leave a few minutes to answer those. I will say that we're not going to get to all of these in the next 7 minutes, but we'll start through them, and those that aren't answered, we will answer offline and provide the answers to everybody. So as we start through these, let's see, I think the first question I'll ask here, and I'm not sure if this is Brian or Ty, but the question is, how does Agile Manager fit into the development environment, i.e. building code, etc.? So Brian, do you want to take that, or Ty?
Brian, why don't you go ahead and get that?
This is Brian. So it's designed to fit into the development environment with its integrations with the IDEs through ALI. And so when we start looking at the IDEs for developers, things like Visual Studio, Eclipse, IntelliJ, even SAP, and also through that as well into the various popular source control systems that are out there, CVS, Git, Version, TFS, etc., and then into build systems like Hudson, Jenkins, Electric Cloud, and going into unit test systems and code coverage as well. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. And I think a follow-on to that is, how does the defect management in Agile Manager relate to defect management in Quality Center ALM?
So using the Agile Manager Synchronizer with ALM, it's designed to pass all of the information about a defect that you may find in Agile Manager up to ALM, so you can start marrying it with the requirements and the tests that were run. So you can think of the two of them as synonymous, two halves of a whole.
Okay. All right, so that's good, and we have some more questions around that AGM, ALM integration, and we have questions coming in as a flurry. So I'll go through. We have some very specific questions here around the functionality of Agile Manager that maybe, Ty, you could take a stab at a couple of these. One is, can the story acceptance criteria be captured as part of the story definition?
One more time, read the, okay, can the story acceptance criteria be captured as part? Yes, so yes it can. So that's something that I just wasn't able to show how you can set that up as part of the criteria, and then it'll be seen on the testing side, and really, yeah. It can, and there's, if we set up something afterwards, I can show a little more details how you can do that in the Agile Manager, where you can set that criteria, and it has to, to pass or fail that falls within the session.
Okay.
And I see another one here that is the integration with IDs included, or is that an add-on cost? So The integration with IDEs is included. There is no additional add-on cost. It's part of Agile Manager's integration capabilities, and something that we think is a big plus of Agile Manager.
Okay.
Alan, we have a question here, maybe for you. It's can we automate importing time from Agile Manager into PPM, or is it only available as a manual process?
So that the integration you saw we set up in the demo as a manual process, we have some best practices around that, so we probably want to have a more detailed requirements flush out to discuss if that makes sense. But we can absolutely automate any of the functionality that you saw in today's demo. That's definitely possible. I just want to have a little more consultative conversation.
Right.
Yep, so there's another question here that just came in along those same lines, Alan. Does the timesheet actuals from Agile Manager roll up to the project in PPM? And I can help you answer that. The answer is absolutely yes.
Absolutely yes.
It rolls up
key
as part of the key functionality. So, I mean, the whole use case of being able to understand the cost of that development effort from a single entry of time that happens on a task in Agile Manager is absolutely part of that process. So it rolls up the cost associated with it and shows up in the standard schedule and actual views within the project in PPM.
Absolutely, and that also the idea is that you can continue to use that information and leverage for planning of future burns and things like that. So absolutely, rates can be assigned to different types of resources, and so all those financials can absolutely be rolled up and be quite accurate. So yes, I think we've
Great. Thank you.
the answer. It's yes. You're welcome.
So we have a couple of more minutes here, and then we'll wrap up. Just one question here for Ty. Maybe you can take this one. Does Agile Manager support more simple views, less buttons, et cetera, for developers who actually just update their tasks, et cetera?
I think with that, what we have is just your simple drag and drop. So all they really need to do to update that is just drag from if it's in progress to done. And really, that's all they have to do. If they're not already updating in their environment, which just pushes up and synchronizes automatically with Agile Manager. So there's really not a lot of effort that needs to be made by the developer. They can just sit.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yep, thanks, Ty. And I can help answer that question because my team actually uses Agile Manager to do our development. And the developers, they basically see their task board with the tasks that they have to work on, and they drag them from, ready to in progress to done, and they decrement the amount of time spent by clicking on the little balloon with the hours in it. So it's as simple as that from a developer interface, or it can be as simple as that. So we're at the top of the hour here. I think there are just a couple more questions that we can potentially take a look at here. I'm just trying to read through these to make sure we get as many as we can. One of the questions was specific in Agile Manager. Are the defects tied to user stories, or are they associated with a sprint? Ty, maybe you can take that one.
They're going to be tied to your user stories. You're going to have a developer set criteria, and they're going to have it, that ran, and then if it comes back, excuse me, my voice is coming out here. One sec. If it comes back, pass or fail, then that's just going to be tied to that user stories, and so there's that visibility into defects that are associated with the user story that will be tied into certain sprints. And that's where, upon sprint closure, if it wasn't a defect that wasn't taken care of, it can be rolled into the next sprint, or it can be put into the defect backlog.
Okay, great, Ty. Well, I think so. We're 2 minutes past here, and I definitely want to respect everybody's time. So I want to wrap up the webinar. Those questions that we didn't get to, we will absolutely answer and provide those. They'll be available on the Vivid website, I think. So I do want to thank everybody for participating in today's webinar. There's a short survey that we would love if you would please participate in to give us feedback on the webinar. That's how we get more of these funded. So we'd love to have feedback, and I really appreciate the number of questions and the engagement here, as well as appreciate the time from Ty and Brian and Alan to go through this. So you can see some links here on the screen to get more information for Agile Manager and PPM. And once again, let's call it a day, and thank you for attending, and everybody have a great day, evening, and thanks again for attending the webinar.